sound on it. And it went out Tuesday night, and they worked on it, and so this is kind of the test right now. But I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Putnam County Board of Commissioners, meeting with the Putnam Development Authority, Thursday, January 22nd, and I'll call this meeting to order at exactly 4:02 p.m. Thank you all for being here. I want to talk about a little bit before we start. There will be no actual office participation in this particular thing. If you want to talk with someone after the meeting, that's fine. And our sheriff's deputies are here to make sure we don't want any kind of demonstration or anything going on out in the audience. Please try to hold it down so that we can have a good meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss issues regarding strategic operation activities and at the Putnam Development Authority, and we'll try to end this meeting no later than 5:45. We need a short break before our town hall meeting, which will be right here at 6 p.m., and we hope you'll stay for that too. That will start at 6. Today, we're going to allow each commissioner to comment or ask questions. We'll go one by one, and starting with District 1 and ending with the chairman. And then we'll invite the PDA members to comment and ask questions. So it's going to be a back and forth. I wish we were a little closer together, but the rules, we're going to ask each individual not to dominate, but try to keep things reasonable with their questions and their comments. I want to start off by saying that every member of the Putnam Development Authority was chosen by at least 3 votes of the Board of Commissioners. I respect every member of this board. I know every one of them personally, and I served on the board for many years. So I want to say thank you to them to begin with. Thank you for serving. It's a tough job. It's an unpaid job. You guys aren't paid a penny to come to meetings or anything else, and I want to say thank you for the job you do. It's thankless, and there's always different ways of doing things, and we appreciate you. I appreciate each of you. Thank you so much for who you are and how you do your job. To start with, I will invite District 1 to open up and have questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'm going to put the county attorney on the spot. Would you explain to me and to the rest of the folks what the commissioners, what purview we have over the PDA?
So the PDA was created by the state legislature. There's really 2 types of development authorities in Georgia law normally. One that's created by the general law, and one that's created by a local act. PDA was created, I believe, in 1968 by an act of the Georgia General Assembly, and all the requirements on how the PDA operates and how the Board of Commissioners interacts with the PDA is set by that statute. Some of the general statutes may apply, but ordinarily those types of PDAs are treated differently than the general. This body makes appointments to the PDA through the local legislation that lays out. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot more that you do specifically through the act. You may give some funding, you may give some property to the PDA, but most of their operations are intended to be done by an independent entity. So they operate alone besides your appointment to that board, and then any projects that you or funding mechanisms that you agree upon amongst each other. It operates a little differently than a normal, say a general development authority, but because of that, sometimes there are things that somewhere in the state might look a little different than they do in Putnam County. There are times, depending on what the PDA is doing, that they might need to get approval for certain projects or certain transactions they're doing from the Board of Commissioners, but that's on a case-by-case basis based on how the project's put together. There's probably a lot of other things, but that's sort of the general overview, which, again, you could ask specific questions, and as things come up, there may be more specifics to the law, but generally, that's your relationship.
And who can actually remove someone from the PDA?
So I haven't found anything specific on point with respect to Putnam County's PDA, but given the nature that it was created by the General Assembly, the only authority I can find is that that power lies with the General Assembly, not with the Board of Commissioners. I will tell you it's untested, so I don't, these are situations where until a court says one way or the other, I can only tell you what I believe the law leads to. But I would certainly take any other legal opinions that reach a different conclusion and review them. But as far as I can tell, membership of this body would only be affected by action of the governor's office.
Thank you. So I'll kind of start. Thank you, Adam, for that. I've seen a lot recently on social media. I've got a lot of phone calls. And Commissioner Garrett and I both agreed that we felt like this would be a good avenue to kind of go forward and see where everybody's at, and resolve hopefully some issues and have some really good discussion on things that could be shored up, if you will. I do not want this to be contentious. Let me say that first and foremost. Secondly, I appreciate what you do because you don't get enough credit. And you can't put what you do out there for the general public because of NDAs and things of that nature. So thank you for what you do. I have the utmost respect for all of you. I know you're very well versed in your fields and you were chosen for that reason. So thank you for that. There's been a lot of smoke and a lot of things that have gone on, a lot of innuendos and gestures and things of that nature that really try to kind of take away from what, in my opinion, what we're really here for. The only thing that, a couple of things that I have a few concerns with, and you guys might can tell me how you want to fix that. But it appears that record keeping is a little bit of an issue that might need to be shored up. I don't know. I haven't asked for records, so I'm just going on what I have been told. And how well you guys report back, or Matt, I guess, I don't want to put you out front there, Matt, but you're the guy. Report back to the commissioners. I'd love to see a little more meat in your report. I think you did a really good job last time with your slides. I like those, but I'd like to see a little bit more if possible. Again, I don't know what you can and can't say. This is my first round as a commissioner, so I'm getting used to that as well. And I'll say this again. I've said it before. This past year, I can't tell you how many trainings I've gone to with ACCG, and I get to talk to other commissioners around the state, and we talk about our development authorities, and some are like you guys, and some are created by the county. And we talk about things that we have, concerns that we have, and I think you guys do a really good job. I don't hear the things that I hear around the state that other people are facing. Appreciate what you do, but I do feel like we could maybe shore some things up and get some better clarity. I would love to invite you to, if the chairman's okay with it, to when you have your meetings, use this space. I think that might have been an issue. I'm not sure if I'm stepping out of bounds with that, Mr. Chairman. But I think the public needs to know what you do. I think there does need to be a level of transparency. But you also have executive session where you can go behind closed doors and talk about what you need to talk about. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't need to know everything. But, maybe there's an avenue to do that. And I would hope that we can talk about that today. And I'll reserve some additional comments until later. Thank you.
District 2, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I echo much of what Commissioner McElhaney said. As I see it, the root of the tensions, issues over the last year plus has been a particular project and an abatement associated with that project. And on the one hand, I applaud the PDA for trying to innovate, trying to do something new, trying to recognize that not every abatement has to be a big factory with lots of jobs. That can be one scenario, but there can be all kinds of other scenarios. And what made sense decades ago doesn't necessarily make sense now. And I've argued from the beginning that I see the logic of that particular project in terms of reducing housing density, in terms of trying to bring in an innovative training facility to address worker shortages, skill shortages on the lake that are driving up costs, and to try and bring in a different kind of housing option, including some workforce housing. But I think where we've run into problems is the very novelty of that ask, that project, that abatement. I think we, the collective, we underestimated the need to make the case to the public. And I think the PDA previously has been engaged in more standard type projects that have often been under the radar, partly because they're non-controversial and not unusual, like the Interfor project, for example, or the successor company to Horton Homes. People weren't aware of them, and even if they were, they'd probably say that's just fine. And I think in the modern age, this historical distinction between the authority of elected officials like us versus an appointed board like the PDA, people's assumption, in this day and age, less deference, more skepticism of the public, more information in the public domain, that historical logic of we want to separate those powers for very good reasons, because historically politicians, if you think we had a bad name now, we had a worse name in the past. And there was a lot of back scratching and corruption, and I think that there was a sense that we want smart, independently minded business people to make these decisions, and we don't want it caught up in messy politics. But fast forward 50 years, I know across the state, and I'm sure across the country, there's this revisiting of that distinction. And many people are asking, well, is it right? Does it make sense? Is it the best way to do things where you have, as in this case, the Development Authority wanted to go in one direction, spending the taxpayers' money, whatever the virtues of the project might be, versus elected officials, again, rightly or wrongly, feeling like, well, we're not sure we're on board with this project, and because of the historical division of powers, we're at this strange impasse. And I think that's what the judge acknowledged in his recent opinion, and who knows where that will go. So what I would like to see out of this conversation is us drawing some lessons as to how we can find ways to collaborate, coordinate within the law, open meetings, etc., where we don't run into this kind of situation, where we don't need a meeting like this. So I think that's more about, it's not really the rights and wrongs of this project. That's probably an argument for another day. We can talk about it. But I think ultimately it boils down to subjective opinions. You can argue both sides. I don't think there's any hard right or wrong. And it's hard to know what the public thinks. There's some vocal objectors, there's some vocal proponents. In my experience, most people have never even heard of it. And if they hear from the opponents, they tend to be against it. If they hear from the proponents, they tend to be for it. And it just shows you it's a big, complicated decision that doesn't have a black and white answer to it. So I'm more interested in, can we, as Commissioner McElhaney said, find ways to make the PDA more accessible to the public, not just because people want to shout at them, but because genuine dialogue, back and forth, And that certainly, I think, is having the meetings, at least some of them, in a bigger venue, perhaps having them at a more convenient time of day. I would like to see the Board of Commissioners appoint a liaison to the PDA. We have one for the hospital, for example, that I myself and Commissioner McElhaney are both appointed to that. We don't vote, but we're a part of the meetings, everything except executive session. And I found it very enlightening, and I think they found it very helpful to have that direct channel back to us. So I think a lot of this friction could have been avoided with more preparing of the ground, more acknowledgement of how unusual and complicated and somewhat intangible the benefits of this project are, expecting that there would be a lot of scrutiny of the abatement idea, and I think the PDA was a little too distant or cavalier sometimes about how it went about that process. And I think, school board is an example, and I've talked to both the school board about it and the PDA about it, and both sides essentially say, well, they didn't approach us. So that's fine, I'm sure there's truth in that, but I think we have to do better than that. We have to reach out, anticipate, go the extra mile, and I think we could have avoided the school board standoff. I think we could have avoided at least some of the commissioner disquiet, and then hopefully calm down some of the public concern. Again, not all of it, because some of it's just disagreement about this project, but I think we probably wouldn't have got into some of the digging into the PDA's workings or the integrity of certain individuals if it wasn't for that project. Because I think that's been the motivation. And I don't think people have found much, but they're fishing, they're looking. And I think if we could have just dialogued better and anticipated better and had better links and connections, we could avoid a lot of these problems. So that's what I think.
Thank you, Commissioner Gary. Next is District 3, Steve Hersey.
I think, as most people know, the reason we're having this meeting is largely because I brought forth a motion to dissolve the constitutional PDA and hopefully in the future to form a statutory one. And I think our county attorney has explained somewhat the differences between the two. With a statutory PDA, a member of the board, that is the Board of Commissioners, can actually be a member of the PDA, a voting member. It doesn't have to be a liaison, as Commissioner Beer. But let me ask, if you will, and I don't know, Mr. Pointer or why should we not form a statutory PDA instead of the constitutional? I mean, what is the reason? I mean, the statutory PDA has virtually the same rights as the constitutional one. The constitutional one has been in effect for what, 50 years? I think it's time to bring it into change this from a constitutional to a statutory PDA.
Kevin?
Commissioner, I'll take that. So we won't really have the option of changing, and it's not an either or. So in Georgia, and Adam did a great job of explaining, the Industrial Development Authority Act in 1969, sorry. And that act was declared unconstitutional. And then there were a lot of period of times where communities were creating development authorities. That method was changed in 1983. We can no longer adopt local development authorities statute came after the Industrial Development Authorities law was, and it was intended, and it did create in every city and every county. It did not allow them to create it. It created in every city and every county a statutory authority. Putnam County already has a development authority, Putnam County. It already exists. The commissioners have to determine whether or not to enact it. And then it can exist side by side the PDA. Most communities that have statutory authorities have different functions between the two. I don't know of any community that has a constitutional authority that would forfeit the rights that you have under the constitutional authority. For instance, to be able to contract directly with Putnam County to do a purely public. Statutory development authorities are prohibited by our Supreme Court decisions from doing purely public projects. The PDA is not. The PDA can do matters which are outside of the normal statutory route. And if you want a complete list, we can do it. I'd be glad to provide it to you. But if you could think of 10 projects, there are probably 10 different areas where the PDA has more power or more flexibility than the standard development authority. Because the standard development authority is for every community and it's standardized. And the last thing I would mention to you is it was not until amendment when commissioners could again serve again on development authorities. It can change back and forth. And it moves and flows. At one point, you didn't have any restriction. Any commissioner could serve. Then no commissioner could serve. And they went back and said one could serve. Similar to a downtown development authority, which is also created under the development authorities. So I think the short answer to your question is you can have a development authority in Putnam County under the statute. They're not mutually exclusive. Especially one that you could utilize in a way that other communities don't for certain leverage. Probably like to have those powers, but are not able to leverage.
So what you're saying is that we could have two different development authorities?
And we did.
And-
We actually did. We actually had an active one,
Wow.
Commissioner, years ago.
The Development Authority of Putnam County has not been active in, I don't know, 10, 12 years.
Since
Has never met. I don't even know who was supposed to be on it at this point. And it was created specifically for Georgia Power. And to issue a bond for Georgia Power. I don't know if they are under 3662A 21, but if they are required by that to do training, they have not done it in at least 2 years, and therefore, anything that they would do it now would be null and void, because their voting authority has disappeared after 2 years. So what you're saying is that we can, as a commission, form a separate statutory development authority, and would that development authority compete with the current PDA?
Usually, what I've seen, Commissioner, is that, and you're exactly right, that's what the prior statutory authority effectively activated in order to have the standardization that Georgia Power wanted for its power plants across. But typically, what I see is they don't compete in the communities that still have their constitutional authorities. If you did not continue them in 1985, you lost them. Only have maybe, I think, 33 or so active constitutional authorities. They serve with the same membership as the statutory authority, so instead of losing some of your ability, both sets of abilities and your membership gets the same training. Otherwise, you've got two separate sets of people which have to get training, have to go through all that. If you're separate, you're separate. But most of the communities that still have a statutory authority with a constitutional authority, they serve together. And some of the communities have swapped over and they'll keep their constitutional authority for when they need it. They'll use the statutory authority. But the difference is the board member makeup. You can't change that constitutional amendment and the board member makeup. Might have some of the members be the same. that's how the original development authority is.
One of the issues that we are trying to deal with is communication. And to me, having a member of the county commission as a member of a development authority would solve that issue to a large extent. I mean, you still have proprietary information with regard to projects, et cetera, which the commissioner member could not divulge. At least that commissioner could advise the board as to things that are happening outside of that. We take, for example, the apparent controversy over contracts with Titan Pictures or Titan Industries or whatever it's called. Those kinds of things could be communicated with the board and at least a level of communication could occur. Of course, the other thing, well, without going into a lot of this business, there is, as Commissioner McElhaney has noted, some question about the record keeping and adequate record keeping. And I would say that Ms. Burns, as treasurer of the group, presumably has ultimate responsibility for that. I mean, that is at least one of the things that a treasurer should be doing is making sure that the books are straight and that all the appropriate records are kept. I know you have an outside consultant that does your bookkeeping, but it is the treasurer's job, I think, to make sure that that is done properly. We come back to, for example, some other issues. One of them would be that according to your bylaws, the chairman only votes to break a tie, and yet the chairman has voted consistently on every issue. And I think that needs to be, should not vote except to break a tie according to your bylaws. We have since, I don't know, 2019 or so, on the Board of Commissioners, the chairman only votes to break a tie or as required if there is an absentee. Well, let me ask again about the recent resignation of one of your members, Mr. Doolittle. Is there anything in the constitutional authority that allows for the members to fill that vacancy until the board remains vacant until the board fills?
Yes.
Under the statutory development authority, the remaining members could fill that vacancy until a new member is appointed by the board. So that is at least one difference that I find that would argue in favor of the statutory authority.
No, the statutory authority is the commissioner. The commissioners retain that ability to appoint.
They do, but in the interim, a vacancy for any reason is filled by the remaining members until the board makes.
After 6 months. So that was a new
After
change.
6 months.
That was a new change that was added. And, but for the PDA, they do not.
Well,
So the PDA does not have that power.
The member can serve for 6 months after their term expires, but if they resign, that position is vacant.
It is vacant for the commissioners to appoint. The commissioners must
No,
appoint.
it is under a statutory authority, and we can argue about this, but under a statutory vacancy for any reason, and this would be a vacancy because no one has been appointed to fill that position, and that particular individual is not continuing after his term expired, but is really vacating the position. Under a statutory authority, the remaining members fill that vacancy until such time as the board appoints a replacement, so.
Don't have that with the PDA, though, Commissioner, for certain.
You don't have that in your constitutional or in your bylaws, so. That is certainly one difference. Well, let me just say that the issue that has really caused us, as Commissioner Garrett has noted, is the issue of a tax abatement for a residential, mostly build-to-rent project. And we have had several discussions of this, and I'm not going to go into all the details of it. I think the bottom line is that most people are not opposed to the project. They are simply opposed to the tax, if you will, abatement, but of course, as you know, there is no such thing in law as an abatement. The ownership of the project by the Development Authority, which makes it tax exempt. So nobody is well, there may be a few people, but the majority of people are not opposed to the project itself. I mean, if the developer wants to do this project, the consensus would be, fine, do the project. They have the rezoning, they have the right to do it, let's, go ahead and do it. But, should we subsidize the developer? Now, it comes down to, I think, the question of the Board of Commissioners as the taxing authority of Putnam County no longer would have the right to grant a tax exemption. PDA can do it, have done it, or tried to do it, if Judge Bradley hadn't halted the process, without the consent of this board, or the consent of the Board of Education. Twice, this board has rejected the notion of a tax exemption for this project. And there may have been other reasons why the memorandum of understanding was unanimously voted against by this board, but one of the major reasons would have been that it would have granted a tax exemption for the project. I would also just say, I don't want to go into all these arguments, but I would note that the commercial portion, the quote Helms College portion, is not included in this tax exemption. It's only the residential build-to-rent project that is owned by the PDA and will therefore get the tax exemption. There is no guarantee that any commercial things by Goodwill will actually come about. So what we're talking about is an issue of giving a tax exemption for a purely residential project, which has never been done by the PDA. Do they promise jobs? No. I mean, 3 jobs over 15 years. And I would also observe that the original MOU called for a 20-year tax exemption, in addition to the 3 years of build to getting to 100 units of certificates. So it's really at least a 23-year tax exemption. Although I don't know how the PDA can grant a tax exemption unless they own the project from day one. And I don't know the details of that. The other thing that really bothers me about that whole project is the fact that rezoning plan that was presented to this Board of Commissioners and approved for rezoning to a commercial PUD was entirely different than the plan that is now being activated under this tax exemption provision. Anyway, so the whole thing, controversy and if you will, discord between the PDA and the Board of Commissioners has to do with the tax exemption. It doesn't have to do with the project. And you can laud the project, maybe a very good project. Maybe we need rental units in the county. I don't know. I'm one way or the other about that. But what we don't need is to subsidize. At least for me, we don't need to subsidize this project with taxpayer dollars. If the company, that is Southeastern, thinks this is such a great project, they ought to be willing to invest their own capital in it. We're waiting to see what Judge Bradley finally comes up with. But one of the issues that we need to deal with, I think, today is the question, how are we going to go about finding an auditor as requested by. According to the judge's order, PDA is to provide the auditor with consultation of the Board of Commissioners. So I don't know how you plan to consult. Are you planning, maybe Mr. Brown, give us some idea of how to proceed with that process?
This meeting wasn't set, Commissioner, in response to Judge Bradley's order. But performed prior, and that's the statute.
I believe the judge's order is for the auditor to determine the feasibility of the project.
Feasibility is
No.
for the judge to decide. and we
All I know
certainly-
is the order issued. by
And
the
that's what I
judge.
said today, we didn't come to prepare to argue what we would argue in front of Judge Bradley. The purpose, I thought, of the meeting today was to get perspective of what Judge Bradley
Well,
made.
let me ask you this. If the General Assembly created
The General Assembly can do many things, Commissioner, but the voters of Putnam County actually voted for this authority.
my understanding is that in order to abolish this, the General Assembly would a statutory PDA could be. Is that correct?
No, you can do a statute.
I want to move on if we can. We can address this later. Other,
I'm sorry, did I take up my 10 minutes?
I think you did.
I
Is
think
it
we did.
possible to be louder for the audience? It's hard for us to hear.
We, the audience is, I mean, this is all the microphone's on, that's all I can do.
Maybe they talk loud.
Please. District 4.
First thing I'd like to say is, I appreciate that y'all take y'all's time, and I hate that y'all lost a good person here recently, but I can understand that. It's a lot of things, and it's not much for me to cover now, I think I've been at the end of the line, but I do agree with a lot of things that people have said. There probably needs to be a little more communication. Maybe, if at all possible, we could fill that seat with a commissioner. If we can, I'm not sure if that's legal. Can we do that, Mr. Brown?
I wish that we could. In fact, we've had over the years, members of the board that had to resign.
Could we, like,
As loud as you can.
okay. I thought I always talk too loud, that's what my wife tells me. But they got let's just say, like, Commissioner Garrett said, how would we go about putting, liaison there, like we got at the hospital? Or how would we go about that, doing that? That is a great idea. How would we go about that?
There are many development authorities that do that. And it really is, I mean, the meeting to attend. The key is to remember, the development authority primarily is engaged in real estate transactions, and many of those transactions go into executive session. Being able to enter into executive session and not, but you don't have to be a member to stay in executive session. And so liaisons are able to stay in and be able to hear that, they participate. Only quite common is actually the norm to have commissioners participate in development authority. Had that over the years, we've had commissioners that, I've only represented the authority since 2014 time range basis, but we've represented the authority for many years at my firm, and we've had members of the commission attend over time. But having a consistent member who's there, who says, I want to be with these volunteers, basically, I hate to say it this way, but you're wearing a hat, wear another hat, right? And say, I'm going to be at these meetings and come back and report to. That's a normal course, and I would say it's probably the one where you result in a lot more communication that's abated because you've got a member of the board that is the same. And it's just the same as the PDA members, the Board of Commissioners can't serve on the PDA. The PDA members cannot serve if they can't even run for election, they have to abandon their office. But that doesn't mean they can't attend the commission meetings. And I will say some of your meetings go for a little bit longer. But there is the ability to do that. In other words, it's a two-way street. Not only can the commissioner there is quite common.
So what you're saying is we can assign or appoint a member that would be liaison to the PDA.
Correct.
Very good, that's.
And you're also saying that that liaison could take part in executive session?
Well, and I don't speak for the board, it's legally possible, but I'm sitting here today with the members, I think I know their answer, but I want to make sure that you wouldn't have any problem with the member, the liaison stating.
What I'm saying, and you opened it up, and I appreciate that. That way, probably on an individual basis, he could come back to us and kind of give us an idea of what's what's going on. I'm on St. Clair Water Authority, but I can come back and inform everybody where we at with that authority, what's going on there. And I think that would be, because I think people think we might be trying to hide something. I may be wrong in that, but, you know, communication is the best thing that we can come about with. And I'm telling you, I'm proud of these people. Like I said, and I know folks get tired of listening. I've been there all my life. I've seen what the PDA has done over a period of time. When Georgia Power closed down, they come in and helped out on that. When Horton Homes, they helped on that. A-Band, Blue Stem, they kind of followed through on a lot of things. It is a great thing that we kind of stepped off with this, what we got now, and I don't think folks understand it as much as they need to understand it, and I think that's liaison would come into play and let us know, and then we could get it out to the public. And I think it's a lot of misunderstanding on it. I don't think that anybody done anything trying to hide anything. I think we're still trying to, y'all are still trying, and this is not a bad thing. Y'all still trying to act and do business like you did 10 or 15 years ago. And I think y'all need to get beyond that. I mean, I know a lot of these people are good business people. They have always made good, sound decisions. But I think we need to get out there just a little bit more to let people know what's going on, so we can get it back before we can get it out there before it gets this far. That we don't need to, after this meeting and maybe one more, we don't need to do this anymore. I mean, we just need for the communication to be wide open. Thank you.
I'll come over to you guys now. Is it okay if I start at the end?
Sure.
John?
John Boytas. I don't know how long I've been a PDA member. My second term. I just want to start out by saying to you guys, I appreciate what you guys do on the commission. And in the past, we have had commissioners sit in on a number of our meetings, especially when they were here. And we do appreciate that. We have always tried to act in the best interest of the county, and I don't think we've ever really had projects move forward that we haven't had discussions and tried to get temperature of those projects with board members, you know, beforehand, because we want to make sure that we're doing the best thing for the county. I do appreciate the questions most of the people did come up with, asking about the difference between a constitutional and a statutory authority, and there are definitely differences within there and some of the powers that we do have. And quite honestly, in our meetings, there was a number of those discussions. Can we actually do this for the project? Another thing I think I really want to emphasize is that this one project that we talk about was never a 100% abatement. There was always, I think it was only a 75% abatement, is that right?
That's right.
So there was taxes that were being recovered, it just wasn't the full amount. And it was always, we looked at it and said, what can we do to hold the developer responsible for completing the project? If that developer comes in and just starts the project and then leaves, what can we do? Well, by having the bonds for title, we actually then held responsibility and could take over that project and make sure that we just don't have a pipe farm out there, and we don't just have something that's abandoned out there. That how do we protect the interest? So we always looked at it and thought that we were working in the best interest of the county, even though we were not capturing 100% of the potential taxes, but we were definitely collecting more than just the fallow land that was out there. And how do we still have some sort of teeth and hold on the developer? So we've always tried to look and say, how do we get the best? How do we get a win-win and get something that's new and dynamic within the community and still retain some control. It's always easy, I know from the board side, some of the stuff that have been brought to light, which I wasn't aware of some of the stuff, just wasn't aware of it. And we've always had very frank discussions. We've never been a rubber stamp board. The situation with Titan. We never did vote on the first one. I was one of the ones that came out and said, I want to see what they've done, and I really want to talk about what they're going to do for us in the future, because it may be different. And then that's why we had them come in and give a presentation on what they've done. And again, in that last meeting, I emphasized that I think we need to look at how do we communicate more with the public, just like you guys have all said. I think that's apparent to us as well, and my desire is that somehow I want to be able to lower the temperature, lower the heat a little bit definitely between us and you, and definitely with the public, because we are truly a volunteer position, and we try to be prepared, and we try to make sure that when we get there, we are really working in the best interest of the entire community. We have multiple different facets of the community here. We have the rural community, we have the lake community, we have the downtown community, and we try to work, and we have the industrial parks. So we try to look at all of those things and how do we grow the community as a whole. I know, just as from my point on the authority, I want to make sure that we can freely be looking at different ways that we can promote development, promote jobs, try to raise that tax base and work in the best interest of the community. Is every project going to be liked by everybody? No, it's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Is every person going to always agree with each other? No. But can we have that open, candid communication? That would be my goal. And can we have open-spirited debate that doesn't become personal? That would be my biggest goal. Because I just don't think there's a place for that. We're not elected officials. We are there as volunteers that have been appointed, that have been asked to perform a position. And that's how I want to be able to move forward, is that I'm doing something good for my community. That I'm sitting down and I'm trying to look out for what's in the best interest of the community. And I think especially with this project, this was a big project. And from the very beginning, there's always that 3 stories of every story. There's our side of we know the inner workings. There's the opposition, and there's somewhere in the middle that's kind of that truth. Development plans always change. I've never seen a plan that goes through a TRO and you go through a planning with a planning and development plan. They always morph and they always change. And part of the change was because there were some holes in that first memorandum of understanding that we had out there. And we had to clean that up. And we appreciated your input on that. I just hope that we can move forward in an open communication. We like when people are there. We don't mind talking to people and educating people. And it's okay to debate. It really is okay to debate. And it's okay to have different sides of things. I just want us to be able to look forward, and truly like the Putnam forward. We want to look forward and say, where is our community in the future? Do we stay where we are right now and just kind of diminish and stay where we are? Or do we try to figure out how we become a desired community? This right now will say a lot about how outside businesses, outside developers, and outside people looking to do business in this community, how they look at us as the authority and how they approach us. Is just what's been going on here. I know myself as a business person, I would look at it and say I want nothing to do with this county right now. I want nothing to do with it. And I'd be lying if I didn't say there was a lot of times that I've had to go home. A lot of times I've sat with my with Craig at church, with our minister at church, and prayed about this and said, do I stay on this authority? Because right now it feels toxic with all the noise. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to move the community forward and hopefully work at what's in the best interest of the commission and of the people.
Thank you, John. Millie?
All right, John said it all. No. Seriously, right, a lot. I would echo what John has said, because I have a lot of respect, and I'm very picky about with whom I serve on boards. I've served on 12 corporate boards across the United States, and I am very picky about the people with whom I serve. And I will tell you the quality and the motives of the people on this board are sincere. Everyone has the best interest of this community at heart. And you can argue about where all that might be. I would like to say one or two things about the project. During the town hall meetings, I sat purposely out in the audience and I talked to individual people, especially the neighbors of this project, and they were extremely supportive. They said that the people that I talked to said that the developer had met with them, had met their issues, and they would rather have this than some other things. Remember, there's a side of this that we may not know if we don't do this, somebody's going to do something. So we just need to keep that in mind. The other thing I'd like to say on the abatement side is that we live in an enormously competitive environment. And that environment in terms of other counties, other states, and the tools that we have to attract business are important. And therefore, we ought to be able to talk about and think about using appropriate tools that make us more competitive for businesses to locate here. And I am one who is serving because I believe strongly in this community. I believe in most of the people in this community. I will say that, to be very honest, just most. So that basically, we need to be able to use every tool we have to kick, scratch, claw, to bring those businesses, to bring developers into this community. I had lunch last week, a developer, $4.5 billion to invest. Wants to invest most of it in the state of Georgia. And how we look as a county is extremely important to be community friendly, because I will tell you, businesses always look at how families are able to integrate into a community, how businesses are accepted within a community and are treated fairly in the policies that we have, and the vision of a community is extremely important. How we look and think about the future. And I will tell you, because I do serve on corporate boards that are analyzing geographic, geopolitical areas where to do business. And we are positioned in the state of Georgia from the standpoint of economics, from the standpoint of workforces. We may complain sometimes about our workforces, but I will tell you, we have the opportunity to compete not only fairly, but I want to be better than all those other communities and attract those businesses that are quality businesses that bring quality people into our community. and that give our community a very, very positive impact financially and with the people they bring in and with what businesses provide to our community. So that's kind of the spirit in which we look at this opportunity. I've only served on the I'm not sure, what, a year and a half, two,
At least 3 years.
3 years? Have I been here?
It's just flown by.
Oh, time flies. But might I say that this is kind of one of the biggest opportunities that we had, but it was looked at in a holistic view and in what it could contribute in a lot of different ways to our community. And I would ask that our commissioners, I would ask that our citizens work with us to present our community in a positive, collaborative environment so that people want to come here, businesses want to come here, and want to be a part. And it's going to take all of us to present our community in that light. And we're going to have to use tools, maybe abatements. I mean, we're competing. Marketing, very important in terms of how people think about our brand with other communities. Got a lot of people there's certain states, I will tell you, that companies in corporate America don't want to do business. They don't want to be seen there. They don't want their names attached. They don't want their brands attached to those communities. We don't want to be one of those. We want to be one of, and the most special place to do business, to think about the future, and to work with each other and create opportunities and create vehicles for businesses to be able to be more competitive in our community than in another county or another state or whatever. And it is with that spirit that we have gone forward, and it is only in that spirit that we have gone forward and worked. And I have a very, very favorite person that I read a lot about is Teddy Roosevelt. And he has a terrific quote called "The Man in the Arena." And it's one of my favorites. I have it on my wall because the credit belongs to the man in the arena. The people who are fighting and working and trying to make things work. That quote, if I can just be a little philosophical, ends with my most favorite quote ever. May I never lie with the cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. And so I've lived my life with that, and I come to serve on this Putnam Development Authority with that same thought and the same vision and the same motives to serve appropriately for this community. So with that.
Thank you very much for that. Patty Burns. Patty,
That's a lot to follow, you know, those are the two of them. And I'm the senior person, I think, on this board for the longest.
You don't look senior.
The longest, for sure. Well, first of all, I only have a couple things to say because they've said it all. But it's very, very, very important that our community's behind us, our commissioners are behind us, and our city council's behind us. If we don't have that, the state will not look at us to help us bring any projects here. In the state, that's very, very important. If we don't have funding, if we don't have support, they just look at us and go on. They're just not going to bring a company here. And that's very, very important to have the state's support and want to bring people here and companies here. And they will not do it if we're all squabbling about stuff. mean, that's all I wanna say on that. The other thing is, I mean, I know y'all are talking about communication and coming to meetings, and whether we can come to meetings or y'all come to our meetings, but our meetings are all open. I mean, we've never had many people ever wanna come to the meetings. And if we need to be in a bigger location, we can certainly arrange to come over here to be in a bigger location. But in the past, since we moved over to the office we're in now, I mean, we've had 2 or 3 people come at a meeting, or we'd have a few guests come. I mean, am I missing any group that, I mean, we just haven't had, you know, people wanting to come to the meeting. If we knew ahead of time that, you know, we had 25 people wanting to come, then we could make arrangements to meet in another place. But typically, no one shows up. And I don't know why, but, you know, any of the commissioners are welcome. Y'all all know when we have our meetings. I mean, it's not always real convenient at the time we have them. I mean, but we're trying to do it on best our schedule so that we can, you know, try to all be there. But, I mean, basically, that's what I want to say, other than we are trying really hard to do everything we can for Putnam County. I mean, we're not getting a thing out of it, except showing up to work and trying to make the deals work. But that's it.
Matt?
Sure, and I'll be brief. I appreciate your comments. I do. I will work on my communication with you guys to keep you more in the loop. But I do want you to understand that there have been times in the past where I may have to sign an NDA with a company. I can't even let these people know who I'm talking to. So there are certain things in my job that I can tell you about, and there are certain things in my job that I can't tell anybody about. That's just the nature of the beast. An example is from another community in North Georgia. A lady called me a while back, and I was telling her the story as well about, you know, the development authority in general. But they met with a major company, had a great meeting. County commissioner got on Facebook and said, "Hey, I met with so-and-so." That project was killed because he talked about it publicly, and it lost a major manufacturing company. So, you know, there are certain things that I will work my best to relay to you guys. But please understand, there just are things that I can't divulge. And I'll say too, to Patty's point about the support, I used to work in a community very close to here, and there's a lot of bickering back and forth in the paper about some consolidation issues. Well, the Department of Economic Development has a lot of interns that work up there, and their job is to scan papers, social media, all this stuff across the state, because they do not want to send projects where there are issues in the community. Now, I haven't received a call right now, you know, yet about that, but I did get a call over in that community, and it was a gut punch, because we worked very hard to get to where we were. And because of what was going on between the city and the county, and they're squabbling, they said, "You're done for a while until this gets worked out." So we basically sat there for months upon months and we had no activity because the state was not willing to put somebody in our community because of what was happening on the outside. So I just wanted to make those 2 points.
Thank you, Matt. Well, Kevin, do you have other things to say?
The only brief thing I would say is that proud to be able to represent the authority. No finer calling than to give your time for a community that you live in and that you love. Type of imperfection, and you cannot mix religion and always room for improvement, always. But to this lady here, who goes and takes her time to review these reconciliation reports and get them back, you have a professional bookkeeper. Also things we might have to look at from the standpoint of how you move those out, because you can only ask your volunteers to do so much, especially when they're given their time. So I tell you that not because I don't appreciate, and I know the members don't appreciate what the appropriations are, but we have to work within the budgets that we have I just made that operating on a lean budget and trying to make more do with what you can to make us look that we development authority want to be in a position where they're putting money back into the kitty, not taking money out.
Paul?
Yeah, one, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all in this, I guess, in this forum. I've been the chairman here quite some time. I'll tell you, I'm proud for what I've done with the Development Authority. I'm proud for working with ladies and gentlemen here. You know, looking back on the last 12 to 18 months, we've done a lot of deliberation at Helms College and a lot of internal deliberation on how our messaging needs to be more internal to the county, where it's been primarily set up to be outward of the county. I can just tell you from my own standpoint, you know, and I agree with everything that has been said before me, is the intent behind the MOU was to give y'all as a body another bite at the apple with regards to the Helm College project. When that CPUD was approved, you as a body became an objective reality to you of, does this meet plat approval for a CPUD, or does it not? Your decision became binary. The MOU and the abatement process was the mechanism to allow you to tell us what you want, because you don't get an opinion otherwise. This goes to the first approved CPUD, Commissioner Hersey. There was a massive change. They couldn't get that project to work out on paper. And when we were approached by Southeastern, and I can tell you we had consensus on this, is that we had an opportunity which is unusual. You don't have many developers that have the ability to spend $100 million in your community that care about what you think. They say, we're going to spend $100 million in your community, get out of my way. These guys spent their time, their treasure, they proved to us who they are. They had the tours to prove to you who chose to go see their product who they are. They worked closely with the neighbors, and what the neighbors told us, and I'll echo what Ms. Mangum said, is that every request that they wanted, that they were filtered for their property values, was not only said okay, but there wasn't even a second question. They immediately said, okay, we want to be good neighbors. This is an anomaly in the development world for that to happen. And what we were trying to do is say, hey, this is what we want in order to give the value on this abatement. What do you want? Because now your special stipulations can come into play that were not added in the zoning process. And frankly, I feel like the process between us working through that got hijacked over social media mainly. And I would still challenge you now, is that process is, I think, still available. And so I'd ask you, what is it do you want on that project that justifies an abatement in your eyes? Because I know that, I say all of you, I don't know that you've ever been a party to an abatement, Richard, in the time that you've been in our bonds for title deal, is most often not, they're not brought before you. And we made a conscious decision to bring this before you, just for that purpose. And I also want to say, I moved back here because I love this community. And I'm the only one on this board that grew up here. No, this board.
Oh, that board.
Yeah. And we're trying to put the best foot forward, and my own personal goal in this is to create a community Well, when my kids grow up, they want to come back here to raise their grandchildren. That's my personal goal. That's why I do what I do. And understand that everything that I've done from the moment that I moved back and put myself in civic life was based on that one goal. That's why I'm here tonight.
At this point, we've got a little time left, and we can have any rebuttal that you gentlemen or more questions that you would like. So, Tom, is there more that you'd like?
First, let me say thank you. I appreciate your comments. I think they've been fantastic. I appreciate your willingness to talk with us. But I had no doubt that you would, each of you. We need to, not only us, but also the community, need to get back to an era of civility where we can have conversations, respect each other's views. We may not agree with them, but we should respect them. This is all of us. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean you're wrong. And if you don't agree with me, doesn't mean I'm wrong. Just means we sometimes have to agree to disagree. But as long as we are working for the good of Putnam County, I think that we'll all be successful. And Richard and I both talked about this. You don't get anywhere, in my opinion, taking shots at each other. That includes the community. You don't solve anything. You put people on the defensive, and I don't like it. That is not what I grew up in here, and that's not what I'm going to let continue if I'm serving on this board. So I appreciate what you guys do, understand that. I'm quite certain that based on this, we can have much better communication and much better transparency. So I, for one, am not incredibly concerned that we can't work out any issues that we have and move forward. Thank you.
Richard?
I would echo that. I think the two next steps that I see is one, not surprisingly, I think there's willingness to formalize some sort of routine interaction between the commissioners and the PDA. You're right, we can certainly come to the meetings. We're free to, just as you're free to come to ours. But I think there's a big difference between the opportunity and someone's formal designation. You know, it's so-and-so commissioner's job to attend every meeting where possible and communicate back in a certain way. And I think we've been remiss in not having that arrangement, at least during my time. So I think that's an easy fix, and I think that will go a long way to just removing some of the noise and misunderstanding. I'm pleased to hear Mr. Rocker say that there's still opportunity for the commissioners to weigh in on the project and the details of what's worth an abatement, essentially. Who knows what will happen based on the judge's intervention? None of that I can't predict. But I do feel like, as others have said, because of all the community concern and the social media noise, that intention you had for us to weigh in, and again, Commissioner McElhaney and I sort of came in the middle of it, so I think we were even more unsure what was really going on. But I think, yes, we have some separation of powers, and that just is what it is until something shifts. But the more we can find ways to collaborate and discuss, and we make suggestions. You know, I know I've made suggestions to you about certain aspects of the abatement, and I think it would be a great opportunity to sort of heal some of this division and to show get down to some practicalities. How might we modify some of those terms? Obviously, the developer has to be willing to. Can't be fantastical stuff, but are there ways we can tweak it that might bring everyone back around the table again and just make everyone clear about the trade-offs and the details, and how might we anticipate certain eventualities, or if things don't go a certain way as projected, some sort of clawback, or whatever it might be. I don't know the details, but I welcome the opportunity to sort of return to that spirit of dialogue, that way it was supposed to happen. I don't quite know the mechanism, but I appreciate you putting that on the table, because things have moved so far along, and who knows quite where things will go. But it's good to know there's still opportunity for some refinement that might reassure at least some of the public's concerns or some of the commission's concerns. You know, who knows on the details, but I appreciate that opportunity. So I think that would be that, plus the communication channels. I think those would be two very positive outcomes from this conversation.
Thank you. Commissioner Hersey.
Yeah, just to follow up on Millie's, there is also a famous quote that says that the road to hell is paved by good intentions, and I appreciate all of your good intentions. But there is more to, I think, the issue associated with this than just minor errors, okay? And that will presumably play. Roger said that the MOU and this board is not negotiating with Southeastern. I mean, you are, perhaps, but all we can do is look at the MOU. And the MOU says we want a $100 million bond issue. We're going to invest $60 million. What happens to the other $40 million? Is that just profit for Southeastern? I don't know. I mean, you know, Roger says, well, they're going to invest $100 million. Well, no, that's not what the MOU said. The MOU said they were going to. Let me ask Mr. Brown, have you entered an interlocutory motion with the judge? A motion to have the judge deal with his request for an auditor. You said that an auditor can't do what the judge wants, so have you presented the court with a motion?
No, sir. He set a hearing for March 31st.
Right. And so, in the meantime, the judge has ordered us to consult with you to come up with an auditor and to provide a name to the court of this auditor. I mean, how can we do that if you say an auditor can't do what the judge wants him to do?
We'll have to get the
Can we find, have you looked for an auditor? I don't know. I thought that one of the things that we were going to discuss today had to do with that. I've said all I'm going to say, but, you know, to me, the problem goes beyond communication. Communication is a big factor in the discourse between this board and the Putnam Development Authority, but there are other issues that go beyond simply discussing or having a more open concept with regard to public participation. I'm sure that there will be more people wanting to attend the meetings if the agenda for the meetings was a little bit more descriptive of what actually was going to be discussed. So, will liaison solve the problem? I'm not sure it will. I think there are other problems that that go beyond what any kind of liaison will provide. And so I'm still of the opinion that we need to have a statutory development authority within the county, and if it's in But I do think that that the General Assembly can abolish the constitutional.
Yeah.
Excuse me, just one second, because I'm very competitive. Okay.
Okay. Go on ahead, this isn't open.
Just a quick quote competition, let me tell you.
Okay.
The road to hell might be paved with with
Good
good
intentions.
intentions. The other part of that quote, which is in another, it's not with the same person, but the road to heaven is paved with the efforts of good people.
You talked about your intentions.
Well, I hope everybody heard that.
I couldn't resist.
The road to heaven is paved with
Efforts of
Eff-
good people.
from good people. Road, okay, I like that. Jeff?
I don't see, I've never seen us against y'all in my 5 years here. I've seen, and like I said before, it might have been not communicated. I don't know whether it's on our part not going forward and questioning and going, digging deeper into it, or y'all not wanting to put it out. And Matt made a good point there. It's some things that you can't put to the public because by the time it gets to the fourth person, it's a whole different story. And that's just Putnam County. I've been here for 64 years, and the fourth person has got a completely different story from what it starts out with. And not that he wants to get all the facts and get everything straightened out before it gets that far. And something that can be printed and laid out. And like I said, I've never seen no problem between us. I mean, I respect what y'all do, and I appreciate what y'all do. As I said before, if we didn't have what we got with y'all, we wouldn't be where we are today. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Anything else, John?
No, sir.
Billy?
No.
Thank you for your, Matt? Kevin? Paul? Well, I'll finish up by saying thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity. And I think some good things have come from today. I think that there's places that we can go to improve. There's always room for improvement. And I want to give you my support of moving forward and being together. I believe that communication is the key, and I believe that very strongly. I've made Putnam County my home for the past 30 years, and I love the people here, and that's why I chose to serve. And I thank you. It's my hats off to you for your efforts. I know they're great, and I understand where Matt's coming from because I've been there. And non-disclosure agreements are a big deal, and I think about what happened with Caterpillar and how we got Caterpillar in the state of Georgia. And you've got to be secretive. You have to keep your word. And I thank you for that. I thank you for your hustle. And Matt, thank you for your reports. I think you come to us quarterly and you make good reports. And somebody mentioned earlier, you had some nice diagrams, some nice, we appreciate you. And thank you for keeping us informed. And Paul Van Hout's not here right now. But he's behind
He's
you.
just down on show.
But I'm sure that he will agree, if you need a place to meet, we're here. And we can arrange that. If it's not for the big room, if we got a small one. So if you need more room and to have a meeting, we're open for that. But we're here to work together. And again, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Next meeting starts in